Is it really?
Oh, we don't want Mr. COVID to come.
You're not
No.
on the,
Yeah,
I've got the mics on now.
yeah, forum.
But, oh, does, Don doesn't have it,
Wow.
does he?
It's also Elvis's birthday.
Ah,
Yeah.
right. Oh,
5:30.
oh,
I will call to order the January 2024 meeting of the Glendale Planning Historic Preservation Commission. As we always do, we'll begin with a notation for the record that we have a quorum. Becky, if you wouldn't mind making a note of those who were not in attendance. I don't want to speak their name here. Next item is the approval of the minutes of our December meeting.
I recommend approval.
I'll second it.
Motion is second. Any discussion on those minutes? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carried. All right, we have no items of business other than our annual meeting, which is today. So the main purpose of the annual meeting is to nominate and elect officers for the upcoming year. What is your pleasure, members of the commission, relative to the officers?
I nominate Tom Bridenstine as the chair, Tom Kerr as the vice chair, and Leslie Cooper as the secretary. Is there
I'll
anybody
second
else?
that.
Yeah, and they've all agreed, except for Leslie. Leslie, you agree?
She's the last member, so by default she gets
Okay.
it.
Motion is second on those slate of officers. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
You ran
Since,
that good campaign.
oh yeah, y'all got my mailers and everything, right?
Yeah.
Door hangers. Next item on, relative to the annual meeting is a review of the bylaws and of the guidelines. Again, as I said, I don't know how many years now, this is not the last and only opportunity, but we are required by the rules to at least say that we've gone through that, given everybody the opportunity to discuss the bylaws and the guidelines. So is there anybody wish to discuss anything in particular on the bylaws or the guidelines?
No.
Okay, we'll put that off till next year. Of course, there's always opportunities throughout the year to review those.
Uh-huh.
All right, there's no new business. Is there anybody in the public that wishes to address the planning commission this evening?
Hi, my name is Kevin Parrish, a resident of Village of Glendale, 176 Washington. I had a question for this committee. When did the Village of Glendale get its National Historic status? Was that in the 70s?
1976.
76. At that time, they declared that the Village of Glendale was a National Historic Village?
Well, that the Glendale Historic District was listed on the National Register. I mean, it's not the entire
So was there a submission of that district to
Yes.
the register?
Yes, it was written by Doreen Gove.
So the survey of 1854, before Glendale was established as the first planned community in the United States, didn't have any bearing on the residents that were in that survey?
No, because National Register listing by itself doesn't control your property. It's really an honorary thing. The power to regulate property within the district comes from local designation by village ordinance. And that did not occur until 1993. So it's only for the last 30 years that we've been reviewing building permits for alterations in the district.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about before Glendale was established as the first planned community.
You mean
The
before-
survey that was taken of the whole village to establish the Village of Glendale, before any national historic designation was declared, had no bearing on the perimeters of this village, that you changed the definition of the National Historic status by cutting out part of the community that was established before this community was established.
Let me
Wants to
see
know
if I
why
can
the
answer.
boundaries are different than the boundaries of all of Glendale. That's what he's asking, I
Yes.
think.
Oh, well, at the time, in 1976, Doreen Gove, who did the initial inventory and National Register nomination, was looking at properties that she thought were significant.
Oh.
And they have to meet minimum criteria. For example, they have to be 50 years old.
All of those properties that are west of Jefferson are over 50 years old.
But were they over 50 years old in 1976?
I would say they were, because they were established in the survey of 1854, back before the 1855 establishment of the Village of Glendale.
Were those
Some of
structures
them-
built at that time?
Well,
In 18 were those buildings built before?
In the
50
survey, it
years before
shows a
1976?
designation on Cole
We're-
and Lincoln
It's
and
the-
Washington.
It's the homes though, not the
It's
not the
not
boundary, it's
based
the
on-
homes.
Yes, I'm saying that
And
in the
some of
Some of
survey.
them were established then, but a lot of them, I've driven around there and I can tell homes that are a certain age driving around, and there's plenty of homes there that are not of that age.
Well, I can tell you from living in the Village of Glendale for 60 years that most of those homes are over 60 years old, 75 years old, because they were there when I was growing up. I'm 65. So in 77, which I've been out of school since 77, 45 years, those homes were there. So they would have been over 50 years old at that time.
Well, yeah, in 1976, the 50-year cutoff would have been 1926. And I think there are some that are pre-1926.
Sure. there are.
Actually,
Oh.
Doreen was cut off the period of significance at 1900.
So
she didn't include anything after 1900, at least not
And
as a
they're,
pivotal
like
building.
Albion, going up Albion, there's only like a couple of homes going up Albion that are in the historic district, and then the rest of Albion is not in the historic district, even though there are all sorts of homes up there that are
Oh, good.
that are older homes.
the bigger homes.
That's
yeah,
right,
yeah.
Hedgerow's not in it.
Hedgerow's not in it. My street's not in it.
So, I mean, there several, let me just say, there's several homes in the west side, on the west side of Glendale, heading on the back end of Maple Knoll, that meet that criteria. So if you can jump around that Albion, why couldn't that have happened? Like the last house on Washington on the left, just before you get to the boundary line of Maple Knoll, is a house that I'm quite sure is over 100 years old.
Well, it's not jumping around. What I'm saying is the first two homes on Albion are in the district.
Mhm.
It's a contiguous line, and then the ones beyond that are not. The district ends there. It cuts off at that point.
So,
Well,
so
yeah, I mean,
was the
there's a lot of-
National Historic status based upon the boundary lines that you guys created with this
No, we
criteria
didn't.
of 50?
No, we didn't create that. That was the village. The planning commission didn't create that. None of us on the planning commission,
No, I'm
or
just
even
saying,
here in the village in
something was
1976.
created that it had a cutoff line that it did take into consideration that the whole of the Village of Glendale, being that the Village of Glendale in itself, entirety, was a National Historic
Yeah, it's.
village.
It's
Village, not the district, but village, because it was the first planned community.
Yeah, but there's also,
Not considering all the houses and the separation of houses, but a first planned community. 1855.
The plan was actually limited to the core of the village. The historic plan that you're referring to is a subdivision plan with curving streets and so on, and it is.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the survey before Glendale was established as the first planned community of 1854, 1853.
Let me see if I answer
That's
this
the
way.
deal.
None of us were on the committee at the time, this committee or any other committee that established the historic district back in 1976. So at best, we're guessing at the motivations and the thought processes behind that process in 1976. You know, if you want to go back and read the application, if the Park District or National Park Bureau?
National Park Service?
No, National Park Service would have that. Yeah.
Available.
The nomination documents are available for public review. I have never seen them. If I have, I've never reviewed
Well, the
them.
documents that I read-
Let me finish my sentence, please. We were very kind to let you finish yours. My point is, if you want to get deeper into the motivations of where the boundaries were, why they were established back in 1976, that would be a good place for you to start. We don't know, sitting here today.
That's what I'm saying. You don't know.
No.
And so you weren't there, and I'm telling you what I do know, because you don't know. Evidently, you were not on the committee in 1976, but I'm not asking about that. I'm asking before 1976, with the establishment of the village of Glendale, of being the first planned community, before you guys put in an application to have it as a National Historic Village. This is what I'm asking. You weren't on that committee, so you can't answer those questions, but you can answer the question of it was in its entirety that Glendale was a National Historic Community based upon it was the first planned community, not just a circular.
No, if you're
aspect of
asking
that.
why was the original plan for the village of Glendale from 1845, 55, whatever it was, whether
54.
whether that was used in the criteria for the establishment of the historic district, we don't know.
No,
It
because
may have
they
been-
I
didn't.
can tell you that the
They
original
didn't have an
plan-
historic district there. They were just
But-
making a community.
Sorry.
Oh, okay, so
That
I'm missing
came
your
up
point.
later. It wasn't it was a community, a first planned community. They didn't think on the lines of historic district.
A
That was
portion
something
of
that
it was a planned community. The whole village was not planned.
Correct.
it wasn't.
No.
Well,
No.
it seemed like it because
No,
even
the
back
curve
then
of
there
the
was
streets.
separation for
No.
blacks and whites.
No, it wasn't.
And that planned area on the west side of Glendale was planned for blacks. So I imagine that was in the plan,
Which plan?
the original plan.
You imagine it was, or you're
1850,
telling me
in the
there was?
1850s.
You'd have to show me that. I've never seen it. I've never.
It's at the depot. That's why I saw it at.
Okay.
They have it over there.
Well, you said I imagine it was in the plan. I thought.
No, it was in
maybe
the plan because all those residents over there were black residents. They were the workforce for the big houses here in the village of Glendale. That's why
Okay.
there was a separation there. That was a planned part. Cleveland, and the other street over there, that was planned.
Yeah.
That's what was designated for blacks.
Okay.
So it was part of the
What-
plan.
Are you asking for some action from this commission at some
No,
level?
no,
or
no, no. I'm just
you
asking, I thought that you could answer, but you clarified and said you can't answer that because you weren't on the committee for 1976. But that was a question that was not directed toward 1976, of when you guys had a district established to have.
We didn't establish a district. You're saying we guys. We had
I
nothing
didn't
to do
say
with it.
you guys being the party before you guys because you weren't there in the deciding committee to submit this designation of a historic district within the village of Glendale, the National Historic Village of Glendale. And you can't answer those questions because you don't know what they discussed. But if you go and you research something, as you guys are supposed to do, if you're you're supposed to be preservation and historic, but you don't research anything. I mean, you research the improvements of houses, that's it. But the history I'm talking about 18, before Glendale was established as a community, not a National Historic Community, but just as the first planned community. Then they had a survey, well, actually they had more than one survey that was done. But the one that I saw in 1853, 1854 survey was the latest before Glendale finally got established as a community in 1855. That is all I'm talking about. In that diagram and in that survey, it shows the west side of Glendale, which is black section of Glendale, designated, planned as part of the village of Glendale. So when they designated the village of Glendale, all residents in the village of Glendale were in that plan. Now, because you came up, the committee in 1976 submitted a reformed version of what the historic district was. They omitted those houses that were in the original establishment of the village of Glendale.
Well, I don't know what the national criteria were to establish a historic district. My guess is they wanted to see make sure that the homes were homes that hadn't been altered significantly. Am I right? Was that part of it? The homes that
Yes.
weren't altered
Physical
significantly?
integrity, the age,
Yeah.
and the street plan.
Oh, you sure? You're just guessing at that was the criteria.
Well, I'm guessing that that's the criteria, but I know that they had criteria, and I know that they chose to have certain borders, and they excluded homes that would obviously be in it, because others right before it were homes that were built in the 1950s and 1940s, and they didn't want to include those in it.
I thought that
Because-
the criteria was the area in which you were designating as a national historic.
Do you know that that is a criteria? Or are you guessing at that?
I'm saying,
I
I'm
think you're
guessing at
guessing.
that. But you guys are guessing at the answer you're giving me.
Well, we are, because we don't have the
Can I guess
application
too?
in front of us. You can guess all you want, but
Okay,
you're
well,
trying to
I'm
put
just
facts in
saying,
front of us.
I'm just saying that the criteria, I believe, is not structurally. It's time-wise, and when whatever
So,
they're designating was established. I believe that's what, I
so
don't
you
think it was a
just
structure.
Age was the criteria? Is that what you think?
I believe it was age. I mean, if not, why would you have survey of something that you're gonna establish? I mean, that's a bit significantly identifies that we have parcels of land that are there, whether it's got a structure on it or not.
Well, you can have surveys, but not have it be a designation as to being part of a National Historic District.
We didn't get that designation till later on.
Right.
But when you surveyed to see what you was gonna establish as a first plan community, I think that's significant in saying that that's the outline and the
Well, I'm
perimeter
sure
of
when they
all the
surveyed
land.
it, they were not saying this is gonna be the first planned community. That came later also.
Oh, I think they were just surveying the land that they had established as the village of Glendale.
Right.
That's what I'm saying, you know, and which it has changed significantly since the original establishment of Glendale,
Mhm.
you know, especially the west side. But that was the question I was asking. I didn't know whether or not you guys were knowledgeable, but I see that you established that you aren't, and I can't hold you accountable for something you're not knowledgeable about.
Nor is it in the purview of this organization. If you look at the charter for this organization, we're responsible for what happens within that district, whether or not somebody else can affect it, but we're responsible for what's in the historic district.
In the
not-
district that was reestablished after the village of Glendale was established in
The historic
1855.
Yeah, that's.
But, and that was only because of whenever you submit a
Okay, so-
application
so-
to something, then you
Right.
can limit and.
So you're saying that the decision was a racist decision?
Well, we won't even go into that. Glendale is racist. You have a black section and you have, designated areas for blacks. Is that not racism?
Could have been back then.
Is
but-
that
but-
not racism? It's a simple question.
I cannot tell you what people thought back then. I cannot tell you
The
what
whole
people
world
thought
thought
back
that.
then.
In
But
all of these
today-
communities, you have
but
black and
today
white
it's-
schools.
Okay.
So, I mean, I'm just
Mr.
saying, we know
Parrish,
that that's
Mr. Parrish.
he needed to finish his sentence.
He didn't answer the question when he brought
He
it
was
up.
not finished with his sentence. Let him finish, then you'll have your turn. Randy, were you done?
Yeah, no, but my point is, Mr. Parrish continually comes in here and asks questions which is beyond the purview of this organization. We are responsible for this area. We are not responsible for setting it up. That was somebody else. If the village wants to amend it, they can amend it. But that's not our job. Our job is to maintain the standards within that district. So bring it up with the council if that's what you want to do.
No, I brought it up on a public format.
I also want to tell you that your hat is despicable
Why?
because it implies
FU and a ribbon is despicable?
Yeah,
I thought it might be.
that is no different. Your statement on your hat is no different what you're doing to us, which is claiming something that is may or may not be. So, Mr. Parrish, I'm just telling you, you're doing to us twice. And if I was the chairman, I'd ask you to leave and not address.
And you know what? We be in court.
Okay.
So if you want to, you can see what the next step will be that you'll be involved in.
Okay. Well, that's fine.
Yes, but I'll tell you something else. Ask anybody who has cancer affect their families.
The cancer has affected my family. In fact, I'm taking my father-in-law for an infusion tomorrow.
Well, I've had several members die.
Yeah,
from cancer,
and so
more
have
than
I.
several.
So don't.
I don't care what you think of
that word is
Todd.
offensive to me, and I'm just
And
telling
if you
that
don't
I have
think
the right-
racism is present
I have
in
the
this
right
village
to
of
tell you that's
Glendale,
offensive.
and I'm telling you, if you don't believe that racism is present in the village of Glendale, then you need to go to see an eye doctor.
All right, this is not the forum for that. The council has, if they have any control over racial issues, it's them, the council, not us.
Whenever somebody makes an opinion on anything
you-
I'm wearing, then we have a problem.
You said your piece, he said his piece. Is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to address the commission this evening?
For the record, I'd like to ask a question. So, for the record, the National Historic designation for the village of Glendale include all residents in the village of Glendale.
No.
No.
That's the answer? No.
The National Historic
District?
designation, not the district. I said the designation was the National Historic designation based upon the application in 1976. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay.
All right. Members of the commission, any further business? Is there a motion?
To make a motion. You're the most senior.
I am. I'm more senior today. I move that we adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.